If you are someone who likes to spend a lot of money, then you're going to find it very difficult because minimum wage is not a lot of money for someone who is accustomed to spending a lot. In order to be a better person and be better than other people around you, is to do things that other people do not do. Can you live off minimum wage in Canada? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. On this channel, I talk about life in Canada, Canadian immigration, and personal development. Now today I will be talking about minimum wage in Canada. Can you live off minimum wage in Canada? Just to make sure that we are on the same page, when it comes to minimum wage, it changes from province to province. One of the things that I've noticed is that the minimum wage in PEI versus the minimum wage in Ontario is very close. So because of that and the fact that Ontario expenses are extremely high, Ontario and British Columbia's expenses are extremely high, and the minimum wage is just a $2 difference, that shows me that the minimum wage in PEI is actually way more worth it. However, when I think about everything in general, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that yes, the minimum wage in Ontario is lower, but there are opportunities to get better jobs there compared to PEI. So there are differences and there are opportunities based on the different provinces, and it may be advantageous for you to think about the different provinces and think about where exactly you are in your journey and use that as your way of deciding whether or not PEI is for you or whether or not Ontario is for you. Now in this video, what I'll be doing is to go through how much the minimum wage is and then go through the expenses that are included in our everyday life as we live here in Canada. So how much is minimum wage in Canada? As I said, the minimum wage varies from province to province. In regards to the range, minimum wage in Canada ranges from as low as $13 and as high as $16.75. The highest minimum wage is at British Columbia. So I am living in PEI, which is Prince Edward Island, and in Prince Edward Island, the minimum wage is $14.50. When I first came to Canada, the minimum wage in PEI was actually $13 flat, like $13.00. But since then, the minimum wage has slowly climbed. Now, for me personally, when I first came to Canada, I did make minimum wage. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it way back to just give you a good idea of my progression while I've been in Canada. Now, when I first came to Canada, I got a job that is a minimum wage job, but it paid a little bit more. And I also got like a bonus of it was like a bursary that covered a portion of my tuition, and it was $2,000 for that bursary, but tax was excluded from that amount. Now in that job, I made about $14.75 and the minimum wage was $13. So I was working in a minimum wage job, but I earned more than the minimum wage. Now afterwards, I got a job in my field, which yeah, I was happy to finally get a job in my field. However, it was exactly minimum wage, but I didn't mind because it was in my field. So I was very happy to get a job that was in my field. I was in the office again, and it was just an amazing feeling. After being in that job, I still continued looking for other jobs, which was still in my field. But even though they were in my field, they earned a lot more money. So because of that, I did switch to another job afterwards that paid more money. So I first was in one job that was a minimum wage job, but I earned more than minimum wage. Then I got a job in my field, and in that job I got exactly minimum wage, so the exact $13. Oh, so while I was in that job, what I did was to get another job that was a part-time job. So in that part-time job, that job gave me approximately 13 hours per week in total, and then over time while I was working there, I started to hear about additional shifts, and then I started to make way more money working in that part-time job. I'm definitely going to do a video where I break down the different jobs that I had and also show you how I was able to save my tuition in each of these jobs, because I paid my full tuition while here in Canada. That is a video that I did. If you haven't seen it, I link it up here for you so that you can check out that video. But I paid my own tuition while I've been in Canada, and now I'm out of school. And once you're done with school, there's a program, and once you finish school and you follow all the rules that regulates the immigration rules relating to how you are eligible for the postgraduate work permit, you get a postgrad work permit at a maximum of 3 years, and it matches your course's timeline. So if you came to Canada and you did a course for 1 hour, then if you came to Canada and you did a course for 1 year, then it would match your 1 year of study with 1 year of working, a work permit for 1 year. So once you've received that work permit for 1 year, then you can work for a year after coming to Canada and studying for 1 year. If you studied for 2 years, for example, for postgraduate diploma and also for masters in Canada, it's actually 2 years that you do a masters in Canada, and with that you are eligible as well for that postgraduate work permit. If you went to school for 2 years, then you would get a work permit for 2 years as well. So for me, I did 4 years of school in Canada, so I am eligible to work in Canada for 3 years. I also wanted to take the time out to thank all the new subscribers who have subscribed to the channel. I have seen you and see that yes, the channel is growing, and I'm very happy that the channel is growing. So welcome to all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for deciding to subscribe, and if you haven't subscribed and you're watching this video, please subscribe. And if you are subscribed, thank you to keep coming and watching these videos. I am also very grateful for you who come back to every video to watch it as well. So in terms of minimum wage, we definitely went off tangent there, but I think some people do not know these rules, so I'm happy to let you know that these rules exist. Now for minimum wage, what I'm seeing is that Alberta actually haven't changed their minimum wage since 2018, which is a bit weird, but all the other provinces has changed their minimum wage. So Alberta's minimum wage is $15. Quite a few people are going to Alberta now. Many people still go to Ontario. British Columbia's minimum wage is $16.75. Manitoba's minimum wage is $14.50. I heard that Manitoba is the murder province. You guys let me know if you're from Manitoba, what's happening in Manitoba, but I heard that is the murder province, so I will not encourage anyone to go there because of that reason. But their minimum wage is $14.15. Newfoundland and Labrador's minimum wage is $14.50. I'm just going through the minimum wage. I'll probably throw it on the screen, and I'll also leave it down below where I link for you the minimum wage amount so that you can see it physically for yourself based on which province you're going to. Now, back to what I was saying. So, can you live off minimum wage? The answer is yes, you can. Now, when it comes to rent, as I said, it varies from province to province. So I'm just going to use the biggest province and the smallest province as examples. So for the biggest province, it would be Ontario. Ontario's rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is about $1,100 to $1,800 for a 1-bedroom apartment, and it really depends on the location at which you're living. So when you think about how much the minimum wage is, the biggest thing that you have to think about is cost of living. Cost of living includes your rent, how much you pay for food, how much you pay for grocery, do you eat out? All of those things goes into whether or not minimum wage will be enough for you. Now, if you're someone who is coming from your home country, you're coming from a big job like an engineer job where you make a lot of money and you think that Canada will make you a lot of money as well, it is possible, but one of the biggest challenges that many immigrants face when they come to Canada is that you have to start start from zero. And that's one of the biggest things when it comes to coming to Canada, is that your work experience worth nothing over here most of the time. Sometimes employers will consider it, but many employers do not look at your work experience back in your home country. They want to see work experience in Canada. So because of that, most immigrants comes here and they have to work a minimum wage job when they first come. The problem with that is that if you are someone who likes to spend a lot of money, then you're going to find it very difficult, because minimum wage is not a lot of money for someone who is accustomed to spending a lot. Now, if you're someone who is coming to Canada and you are someone who is currently struggling and you cannot even afford to find food to eat, you cannot even afford to pay your rent, and you are the person who is coming to Canada, someone like you will see minimum wage as a lot of money. But if you are someone who is accustomed to making a lot of money and spending a lot of money, then minimum wage here will come like absolutely nothing. And one of the biggest things that many people come to Canada and do is that they leave, because they do not have the patience to sit down and wait until they are able to get their big engineering job. Now, yes, the opportunity is there to get your big engineering job. The problem is it might take some time, and if you're not willing to wait, you may decide that you are going to leave Canada, and that is just the truth. Now, we're going to do some calculation as it relates to minimum wage. I'm going to use the biggest city and the smallest city. I'm just going to use the calculator on my phone. So in Charlottetown here in PEI, the minimum wage is $14.50. So $14.50. And what you're going to do is to multiply that $14.50 by 37 hours. If you work a 40-hour work week, then 30 minutes out of that 40-hour work week will not be included per day in your salary, because that is used as a break. Now, one of the things about Canada is that when you're thinking about lunchtime in Canada is actually 30 minutes in most organizations compared to 1 hour. What they'll do is to give you 30 minutes of lunchtime, and then you have 2 15-minute break when you can take them at any time. So in the first organization that I worked at, we got the breaks for 15 minutes. And then the second organization that I worked at, they actually placed both 2 breaks and the lunchtime break as one, and it was a 1 hour lunchtime. When I went to the other organization, I actually got 30 minutes of lunchtime, and then they said you have 2 15 minutes break at any time during the day. And one of the things about that, they were saying is like, if you take that 30-minute additional break, then that will be subtracted from your pay as well. Now, as it relates to this, so 37.5, and per week that would be $543.75. Then what you're going to do is to multiply that by 4 to get how much you would make in a month. So your pay for the month would be $2,175. That is what you will be making monthly on a minimum wage in PEI. Now let's try the biggest province in Canada, which is Ontario, and see how much you would make as minimum wage there on a monthly basis. So the minimum wage in Ontario is $15.50. So what we're going to do is to say $15.50 multiplied by 37.5 equals to $581.25 per week, multiplied by 4, which would be equal to $2,325. So the previous amount I said was like $2,175, correct? So the surplus that you would make in Ontario is only $150. However, in PEI, the rent is way cheaper compared to Ontario. What I'm starting to see is that there's a high possibility that people in Ontario may not be able to afford regular things. However, half of the people who immigrate to Canada moves to Ontario, and then the next half goes throughout the entire Canada. But The first half goes to Ontario. So it's interesting to know what's their thought about the cost of living and minimum wage, and why they would choose to go to a city that is so expensive, but that is up to them. Okay, so $2,175 in PEI. You get an apartment for $1,400 in Ontario. One of the ways that people survive in Ontario is actually to share that apartment, where one person takes a bedroom and one person lives in the living room. That's one option that you can consider as it relates to Ontario. And like sometimes you can get a 2-bedroom apartment that is 1,800. It depends on the location. There are places available. It's just that you might not get it, but there's a possibility you could. In that regard, the biggest thing that people do is to share. They just share the apartment, and that way you split your bill in two. So that's the way how you can survive in Ontario. If you were wondering, wait, how do these people survive? They share the apartment. They share their bedroom as well. I know here in PEI, in an apartment that I live in, this apartment that I live in, one person would live, or 2 people would live in the living room, and then 2 people live in the bedroom. So that's actually 4 people who lives in the one apartment. So that's one way that you can really bring down your costs, is by having 4 people in the apartment. You split that money into 4, and like you're basically paying like $300 per month if you do something like that. So that's also a great way that you can survive. But how comfortable are you going to be living in an apartment with 4 people? So things like that you have to keep in mind as it relates to that. In PI, however, the rental amount for a 1-bedroom apartment starts from about $800 up until $1,200, $1,300. You can get a 1-bedroom apartment. Now, again, some people, they let someone live into the living room and one person lives into the bedroom. So that is something that some persons do if you want to cut down the cost. Another thing that you can do is to cut down your costs, and that's what I do. So for me, I basically just pay rent every month, pay phone bill, basically pay all the bills there is, and then that's it for me. The only thing that I don't cut out is food. That is the only thing that I splurge on, is actually food. And I'll buy as much vegetable as I please, as much fruits as I please. But that's the only thing that I splurge on, and I'm okay with that. Outside of that, we could kind of say that I splurge on electronics, but I'm not like a super electronics person. But yeah, you could say that I splurge on electronics, kind of. But still, it's really just what I like. But in general, I don't really spend a lot. So that helps me. So one way you can do it is to share with people, and then you can buy your car and drive around and you're happy that way. Or another way you can do it is by saving a lot of money. So once you can keep your expenses down, you can definitely live off minimum wage. You can definitely do it. And the next way that you can live off minimum wage is actually to add a part-time job to what you're doing. A lot of the people who I live around right now live off minimum wage. They have very nice vehicles, and the vehicles that they drive, based on what I've seen, looks as if it's about $5,000 to $6,000 for the vehicle that they drive, and they don't get a lot of servicing. The vehicle doesn't require a lot of servicing from them. So that's just great. Like, I've seen a lot of people who they just work at Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons. If you don't know what Tim Hortons is a small coffee shop in Canada, or maybe I should say a big coffee shop in Canada. It's just one step down from Starbucks. Starbucks is like the idol of the entire world, but Tim Hortons is like the main coffee shop in Canada. And that's like where they work. And they would work at like McDonald's, and they drive their cars, and they live, and they are happy people living off just minimum wage, working their little 40 hours per week, and they are very happy and they are okay. That is for people who don't really spend a lot on anything other than food and rent and bills. You don't really buy anything else and you're comfortable with that. Some people are not comfortable with that. Some people want the hype, they want all these things. So it just really depends on you as a person, to be honest, when it comes to can you live off minimum wage. But if you're someone who completely okay with just the basics, 100%, and you can save money as well, because I live off minimum wage for very long. I paid tuition from minimum wage and I'm able to save on it. And the reason why I can do that much though is not because I'm working 40 hours, because I'm working way more than that. I was working for the most part. I actually worked during the summers. For the first 2 summers I worked like 72 hours per week that I was working. So that's basically doubling the amount. So if you're making $2,175 and you are working 72 hours, you can calculate that. So $1,450 multiplied by 72 hours, because things vary as well, because once you reach a certain threshold, if it's the one job that you're working 72 hours in, then you start to get overtime. So overtime is also more money that you're making. So stuff like that is how I started to make a lot more money compared to just, even though it was just minimum wage, it was still a lot more money. So yeah, I was doing the calculation for you. So if you were to work $14.50 per hour and you are working 72 hours per week, that is $4,176. So that just doubled the amount of money that I was making right off the bat. Just like that, I was making $4,176. Yeah, that is how you can double your income very, very easily. If you're thinking about how do I double my income, that's how you do it. You work more hours. And in Canada, you can easily get part-time jobs. Here it's very, very easy to get a part-time job. So that is how I've been able to pay my tuitions, because I've been working 72 hours. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this encouraged you to come to Canada some more, because you see that it's not so impossible. And if you're someone in Canada, because I have a huge audience who is inside of Canada, if you're inside of Canada and you're watching this video and you're saying that you cannot live off whatever you're living off of, just definitely think about your expenses and how much you're spending and what you're spending on, and you'll see how money just comes out of nowhere. Or if you're someone who is struggling, then you know that you need to increase your hours. And if you're someone who is saying, well, I cannot increase my hours, then what my advice is to you and what I would say to you is that in order to be a better person and be better than other people around you, is to do things that other people do not do. So if everybody out there is just working their minimum wage job and suffering, and you are suffering along with them, if you want to be different, you have to do something different. And that's my advice to you. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching the video. Remember to thumbs up the video. Please thumbs up the video because it really helps out the channel. Just press that thumbs up button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.